Welcome back. I don't know what setting I have on Zoom. Whenever I hit record, all of a sudden it said, "This meeting is being recorded," which it's never done before. Kind of threw me off. Anyway, hey, good to see you. This video is hopefully gonna be pretty short. We'll see. It's kind of a stream of consciousness thing, but it's something I've been thinking about for a while, and it's about masks. And I know that this is not like a new topic. This has been something that's been like a hot button thing for a while now. The way I kind of worded the anti-mask thing I think it was maybe one of the Ember episodes, I can't remember. But what I said is that the anti-maskers were right, just at the wrong time. And I kind of want to flush that out a little bit in terms of, there's a difference between if it's, April 2020 and we don't know anything about coronavirus, and it's like, okay, obviously having a face mask on seems like a smart thing to do for the time being, and it's probably not like a social control thing, whereas now it absolutely has become that, and I think more. And so I want to give you some examples of kind of what I think masks have become and why I think that this is probably actually a fight worth having. And I understand that this is a difficult one because, like so many other things, we probably all know people who are acting in good faith, who are not crazy ideologues, propagandists, anything like that, but who nonetheless hold beliefs that we know are either false or distorted. Take someone who might be good faith but low information diet person who still thinks that, like, Trump called white supremacists very fine people or something like that. Like we still engage with those people, or who think that Black Lives Matter there's like nothing controversial about saying that, or the organization or anything like that. So I understand that. And I understand that there are people who you have to be careful. You have to choose your battles. You do. But I think that this is actually increasingly becoming a battle worth having, because of what it represents and what it's turning into. So I have saved some screenshots from different news articles over the last couple of weeks. One's from NPR, one's from CNN, and one's from NBC. And I just want to look at those and kind of flesh out what I think is actually going on here and what this has turned into, and also what it's not anymore. So let's do that. I need to go share my screen. Okay, so I made this really neat. I haven't done like a PowerPoint thing in forever, but it's what I made for this. So this is from NBC, and this headline, all these are within the last couple of weeks, is really telling. So they're keeping their masks on. The reasons extend beyond their health. And so that kind of gives us the first glimpse into what this isn't. This isn't a health thing. It's increasingly becoming not a health thing, that the trust the science, believe the science, love the science, worship Fauci, all that other stuff. That group we know that they've moved past the science a while ago. But now as more and more people are getting vaccinated, the argument for the masks is becoming increasingly flimsy. And so now they're just stopped trying to make arguments based in science, based in medicine, and moving on to something else. And if it's not based in science and based in medicine, then it's grounded in something that's much more subjective and much more in the realm of faith, or social pressures. So this is this NBC one. And so we'll look at, I think the next one is from this article. So as these mask mandates ease across the country, people are finding so it's an affinity for face covering. So affinity is where you like something, you have a certain, I guess, love of it type of thing, a preference for it, a desire for it. So this is now they have an affinity for face masks, and it's not health reasons. So they've come up with things. This is they've come to appreciate the reprieve they provide from stifling social expectations while in public. They see mask wearers. These mask wearers say they see a multitude of benefits to covering up. No one can tell you to smile when you don't feel like it. It gives you a break from putting on makeup, and it provides a degree of anonymity. I'm not sure anonymity is necessarily a good thing, but so they're saying we've experienced these, what we call stifling social expectations, And so we want to normalize a different stifling social expectation, which is that you should be wearing these if you're a good person, which is one of the things we'll see. The makeup thing. So all of these boil down to, just understand, no one has to wear makeup, right? No one needs to wear makeup. I don't know anyone who tells you that you have to smile when you're walking around. I know that that's a trope that we see trotted out by the feminists these days. Men are always telling women to smile. I've never heard this. I've never known a woman who has been told this. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but the idea that this is some pervasive thing is obviously laughable. But here's where they really get into it. And we'll see this theme again. So one of the reasons they include showing solidarity with those who cannot get vaccinated, including young children, and signaling to others that they still care to protect one another. And so what I want to try to build the case is that masks have become an overt virtue signal. And I know if you live in like metropolitan areas, whenever you see people outside wearing them, and people wearing them in their car by themselves, it doesn't make any sense. Or if they're riding a bike outside by themselves, and it's like they're wearing it for a reason that's not health related, not science related. But here, my point is that this thing that we understood, that was kind of the backdrop to this, that was underneath, as those of us who kind of follow this stuff and follow the culture war, for lack of a better term, who are saying this is just virtue signaling in these cases. Now you have mainstream media outlets, and I like to use NBC, by the way, because I think people don't understand that they're basically the same as CNN. And so they get to fly under the radar with a certain level of credibility that they shouldn't have. But anyway, but now you have them saying, yes, it is signaling, but it's signaling in a good way. By wearing them, this is showing that you care about other people and that you want to protect them. Well, what's the implication? If you're not wearing them, you don't care about other people and you don't care about protecting them. So this is establishing an overtly stated like virtue, like social ethic and morality to wearing these. Now, again, notice that this is, they say solidarity with those who can't get vaccinated, including young children. What young children are looking at that as solidarity, by the way? And what's the mortality rate of young children for COVID-19? I mean, we know it's a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a percent. I think it's less than a couple hundred who've died globally who are under a certain age. And they almost always had some crazy complications, that it wasn't just COVID. So the point is that this is not about science. This is about them saying, yes, we want to affirm to you that wearing these shows that you care about people. Here's one from NPR, where they talked about, this article was about how the lifting of the mask mandates, I believe this was in Minnesota or Wisconsin, I can't recall. So here they talked to this guy named Drew Petrowski, Lansing. Oh, so I guess that's Michigan, actually. So he's fully vaccinated. He says he welcomes the change. It says Michigan right there, in Michigan's mask mandate, but it hasn't meant that he can take his mask off as freely as he would like. So here's the reasoning he gives. This is what's crazy here, okay? I just hate the idea that the decision that I make regarding my mask would let people think that they understand my political leanings. So he's saying, I don't want them to think I'm a conservative. And so again, now we have it as it's a signal of whether or not you care about someone or not. And it's a signal about what team you are on or not. So now we've joined the two ideas of, if you're wearing a mask, it signals that you care about them, that you're showing solidarity with young children, that of course that doesn't make any sense. And then also here NPR is saying, they're validating the idea. It's like, yeah, people might get the wrong impression about, whether or not you're one of the good guys or not, if you take it off, even if you're fully vaccinated. So now, again, we have a faith-based and a reason, a morally, a contrived based reason for wearing it, solidarity. And then now here's an alliance, allegiance, a team, a tribal based reason for wearing it. And then the last one, these are three from CNN that it's all from the same article. So they talked to this doctor about, it was right after they released the mask mandate and said, if you're vaccinated, you don't have to wear it. And so CNN did this Q&A with this doctor. And there's a few things that are interesting here. Obviously, the first one here that I have with the underline is, what if you want to keep your mask on to show others you care about them? So again, affirming, it's like, hey, if you keep it on, you're showing others that you care about them, or as NBC put it, you're signaling that you care and want to protect them. And so here it's saying, like, look, the bottom line is you should do what's comfortable, decide as a family and a household what you're going to do. And at the end, she says, at this point in the pandemic, so much is about personal choice and your personal tolerance of risk, which, by the way, that's a fair statement. But this is an article that they interviewed a doctor saying, okay, how do we navigate the fact that we're told we can take our masks off if we're not vaccinated, or if we're vaccinated, which is a scientific question. It's saying, what are the risks, if any? And so what you'll see time and time again in this article, if you read the whole thing, I can find a link to it if you want, as if, like, I'll put links to it. Anyway, but where she talks about how it's all about personal choice. But is it personal choice? Two things. One, is it personal choice if the dichotomy is wearing it shows you care, and the implication being not wearing it shows you don't care? And the other one is it's a doctor, and the questions are, does it make, this is really kind of a yes or no thing. If you've been vaccinated, should you wear a mask? And so, yeah, they have these questions like, are there circumstances where vaccinated people should still double mask? And they're saying, oh, it depends on your risk tolerance. And so she's basically saying, like, yeah, there are times when you might want to, but that's a personal decision. And so it's like, no, but it's not a personal decision. Like, should you wear a helmet everywhere you go? It's like, is it a personal decision? Yes, but you're really looking for the doctor to tell you if it makes sense to, right? So the fact that they're still leaving this up to its personal decision, but here are the moral incentives, shows you the perspective they have. And then in the last screenshot here, they say, I don't know if I'll move my picture over. What about transportation? Should people be wearing masks on buses, planes, and trains? What should you do if someone around you isn't wearing a mask? So it's a personal decision, right, guys? Personal decision. Yes, people should be wearing them on public transit, planes, and trains, because this is still the law and is required. Now, that might be the case. I don't know. I don't know if all public transit it's required. I would imagine that it would make sense in some localities. So I don't have the information on that. But it says here, if someone isn't wearing the mask in this setting, they are going against the law. You could approach someone in charge for help or move away from them if you're uncomfortable. So the whole premise of the article is, if you're vaccinated, should you wear a mask or not? And she's saying, look, it's personal preference in a lot of these cases, but wearing a mask shows you care about people. You still might want a double mask under some circumstances. And you might want to go and get an authority somewhere in the right setting if someone isn't wearing a mask. Again, you don't know if they're vaccinated or not. They might be vaccinated and not wearing one, but regardless, you should still go and snitch on them. And so here's kind of those are the clips. But again, to kind of let's synthesize this a little bit. They're saying it's a personal choice, but it clearly signals that you care about others and shows solidarity. And if you don't wear one, you might miscommunicate what your politics are. I forgot who tweeted it out. I think it was like David Hogg tweeted out maybe like a month or so ago, like right after this happened. And he said, I'm vaccinated and I want to take my mask off, but I don't want people to think I'm a Republican. And so, like, this idea is out there and is very prevalent, I think has been for a while. What's different now is that it's on the surface. And the fact that all of the medical pretense and scientific pretense is starting to fade. And so they're just coming up with a new justifications, or at least articulating things that we all kind of already understood, which is this tells people which side you're on. And it's a show of what a good person you are. I think it might have been Deb Philman, I can't recall. I think it was, who made the argument that masks, like, basically these people have enjoyed having an overt sign to show how good they are and how morally superior they are. And the reason why they've been so resistant to lifting the mask mandates is because they've lost, if they do that, if they stop wearing it, then they lose the very easy way to show what a good and moral person they are. And I think that's true. And so the argument I want to make is twofold. I think, like I said, this kind of stream of consciousness. One is that this has become what I think is equivalent And for a lot of people, not everyone, again, I know there's good faith people who are probably like, there are people I really care about and respect who even after, and they're my age, so young, and even after they've gotten vaccinated, I remember one of them saying, well, we've been vaccinated, but we're still trying to figure out what that looks like. What are the implications for everyday life? And my answer was like, well, the world's your oyster, man. Like, why would there be any other, what's the complication here? It's like, you just go back to, isn't that the point of being vaccinated, right? Like, whenever you're traveling overseas, let's say you're going to Malaysia, or China or Mongolia, or Madagascar, to continue with the alliteration theme, you get certain vaccines. You get like Hep B, you might get scarlet fever or malaria or all these other things, and you get the vaccine, and there's nothing. They don't say, here's the added precautions now that you're vaccinated. No, it's, you get the vaccine and then you go there and do whatever, right? It's, you got it, and then you just go and do whatever. But here in this context, it's very different now. And that tells you that it's not about science. It's not about medicine. It's not about data. It's about something else. So my point is, like I said, I think it's probably twofold. One is that this, for most people, has become a religious symbol. I think it is similar to a yarmulke, or I believe maybe kippah is what the Jews call it, but that head covering that men wear to keep their head covered before God, or I think like a burqa in Islam. It's a religious symbol to show your reverence for God, and to show and to tell the people around you, what your belief system is. So if you're in Israel, for example, there's different levels of Orthodox Jews there, and some of them have like things like wrapped around their arms. They might have I forgot what the little tassels are called. But these are all just symbols that are part of their personal acts of worship, that reflect their orthodoxy, and they tell others like where they're at in their faith, like how orthodox of a Jew are they. And I think the masks are becoming the same type of thing. If you're vaccinated, fully vaccinated, and you're driving in a car by yourself and you're wearing a mask, you're not wearing that to protect yourself from COVID-19. You're not. You're wearing it to show other people who you are. You want them to see that you're the kind of person who believes the science, or that you're not a conservative or Republican or something like that. And so, yeah, I think that's where we are. So that's my first argument, is that this has become a religious thing, and baked into that is they're not hiding that reality, right? They're not hiding that reality. They are, that's what those news articles were. That's NPR, NBC, and CNN all saying, yeah, there are very good reasons beyond the science and health implications that you would want to wear a mask, including that you're telling people that you care about them. You're signaling you're a good person, and so like they're adding this overt level of morality to it, that previously was kind of understood, but now they're just coming out and saying it. And so we've moved into the realm of religiosity and spirituality and something else. And so the second thing I want to say is, I think this is a fight worth having. I think it's worth pushing back on people. And I say this carefully, because I understand the relational dynamics, and I think there are ways in which it feels like a hill that is a stupid hill to die on for those of us that kind of roll our eyes at it. But there are some real serious social implications if we continue to normalize this, especially once we have overtly and unapologetically left the realm of science, at least the science of virology, or pathology, pathogens. Because I'm thinking about the necessity of just seeing other people's faces and learning social cues. Whenever I see a kid who's like 3 wearing a mask outside, which I've seen this even where I live, which is a very red area, although my area, or red state, although my area is pretty purple. It breaks my heart, because I think, what are you doing to that kid? How are they going to feel about the world? Think about like someone who is raised to have some type of agoraphobia kind of thing, where they're just afraid of any germs. We have to have, that's what the human, biome. That might not be the right word, but like that's what probiotics are, is where you have to have a certain kind of exposure to germs and stuff in order to have a healthy immune system, to have a healthy digestive system. And there is increasingly going to be a generation of kids that are raised to be terrified of any germs and stuff. So we're making them more fragile, not less. Jonathan Haidt talks about this in The Calling of the American Mind, where he quotes Nassim Taleb and Anti-Fragile about how they did this in trying to fight peanut allergies. They actually increased peanut allergies by something like 40% among kids by making them avoid peanuts altogether. And so my point is that the reason why I think this fight is worth having is because there are serious implications of what it'll do to people biologically over the years as we normalize this for non-scientific reasons. Just think about also like reading facial cues for kids, being able to, part of the way they grow socially is by seeing smiles and seeing the, like all of the things your face does when you're talking, to tell people, okay, am I saying something good or bad? Are they comfortable or uncomfortable? Are they upset or happy? We have to have that. We have to have the ability to see each other's faces. And we've already lost a lot of that by doing so much online, by people are just, on their phone and not looking at each other. And so what happens when the limited amount of time that we have where we are together in person, our faces are covered? We lose a significant amount of our ability to have a certain emotional intelligence if we raise a generation without the ability to read facial expressions. And same with dogs. I think I heard someone like Michael Malice talking about like how it's necessary for dogs to see our faces too, and probably other animals as well. So my point is that if we believe, so I believe that this is a religious thing, that there are people who have been in certain information echo chambers that are kind of hermetically sealed, where this type of stuff has been normalized and they've been given reasons that make sense to them. That in other words, I think there are people acting in good faith who are still hesitant to take these off if they're vaccinated. And by the way, I think that I'll just as an aside, I think if you've had it, you don't have to wear a mask. I think if you're young and you're not worried about getting it and don't have a lot of like pre-existing conditions, you shouldn't be worried about it either. But my point is that even all that aside, that there are people who, if they're vaccinated or they know that people around them are vaccinated, they're still in these echo chambers where they're listening to MSNBC or whatever, and they still think this makes sense. I think it was Joy Reid who said even though her whole family's vaccinated, they still double mask whenever they go outside to places. Like, that's crazy. And my point is the reason why I think it's a hill worth dying on is because it's a social pressure that they're creating social consequences around. Go get the authorities. You're not a good person. I think we have to push back against the idea that you're some unfeeling conservative if you don't wear a mask. We don't want that to be further normalized at all, because they're wanting to make it one more thing, I think is my point, that divides us, that divides the clean from the unclean, the washed from the unwashed, the good from the evil in our society. And I think we have to push back on that. And because it's an easy fight to do in terms of saying like, no, I'm not going to do this. I think it's easy to articulate the reasons why. It's just difficult in certain social settings with people who are acting in good faith, that you care about, that you might not want to alienate or make uncomfortable. But I think nonetheless, because this isn't some racially charged issue or something like that, it seems like an easier fight than most, because we can say, well, why would you? Here's the science behind this. And it doesn't have the same moral implications as like trying to debate like disparities between racial groups or something, is my point. And especially as we're getting now with more outlets saying, yeah, this isn't about science anymore. Yeah, this isn't about health anymore. I think it's going to be easier to do, because the point is, if we don't have the fight, they're going to continue to push it. And it's going to continue to become instantiated into society and baked into how we interact and baked into social interactions and businesses. And so we have to have a pushback if we don't want this to be some normal thing, especially I'm thinking about kids. I think about that a lot, of what this is going to do to children on down the line. I was talking to someone the other day on my locals, where they were saying that there's like a huge push if you're in middle school, basically, where if you're not vaccinated, your friends are bullying you, and their parents might even be like, well, if this person isn't vaccinated, why we don't want them to come over to our house, So I think we have to push back on this. We do have the science on our side. We have the data on our side for this. And I see this as a thing that will only get worse and more rigid, because that's what these things do, is they become, anytime you grant authority to people to tell you, you have to do this or don't do that, it doesn't stay static. They don't give it back. They just take more of it. They find new ways. That's what the Pharisees did in the there's the intertestamental period. So there's like 400 years between the Old Testament and the New Testament. And when the New Testament begins, you see that the Pharisees have just completely gone off the rails in terms of these purity rituals. And I believe the words that Jesus uses is that he lays heavy burdens, or the Pharisees are laying heavy burdens on people's necks that they can't maintain, because these purity rituals are just becoming overwhelming. So my point is that it's only going to get worse if we don't push back on this. Like, normalizing the fact that wearing a mask shows you're a good person and not pushing back on it is the next step. Is the vaccine passports. It really is. So like the businesses, because here's the progression. If you're not vaccinated, you have to wear a mask. Sorry, it's that simple. And if you say, okay, here's the dichotomy, then they're going to say, well, we need to have a method of verifying if you're vaccinated. Vaccine passport. That's it. Whereas you could just say, no, we have to, like, we're past it. Once a certain amount of the population is vaccinated or had it, no, there's no mask. People want to do that on their own. That's fine, but they have to acknowledge it's not about the science anymore, that we're past the science. So that's what I mean whenever we have to push back and have the fight, is to say, this is not about science. This is not about science. You're making this about something else. This was we understand we didn't have information about the virus. It made sense to do it a year ago. But we're past that. This isn't about science. And I'm sorry, if you feel like it is. But I think we have to hold that ground and push back, because it's becoming a religious thing that they want to push on us. I think it's, I call it Far-Left Orthodoxy, and it is an orthodoxy. It is a religion. And I think this is like Far-Left Orthodoxy's first physical, like, indicator of your faith. People are getting tattoos, man. I don't know if you've seen this on Twitter, but where they're getting tattoos of like Johnson & Johnson and the date and like a Band-Aid or something to show when they got vaccinated. So we're in the realm of religion, and we have to push back on the people who are trying to force us to imbibe their religion, because it's only going to get worse. And again, I think normalizing this as it's reasonable to have these type of social understanding, social contract, that if you're a good person, you do this, that only is going to lead to worse and worse things. So that's kind of my point there. That's my take on it. Like I said, I'll link to those articles if you want to look at them further. But I think this is a fight worth having, is kind of my point. And I think it's one of the easier ones that we can do, even in our personal relationships. So I don't know if that makes sense or not, but you can give me your 2 cents on it. I'd love your feedback and what your experience has been. My previously, I've said, if a business requires me to wear it, I'll wear it. And I have changed my mind on that a little bit, to the point where I say, if a business is going to enforce it, then I have to assess from there. But I've had COVID. I'm not going to get vaccinated because I've had it. And I don't want to normalize this as, some social virtuous thing. At this point in time, again, I think it made sense a year ago. It doesn't make sense now. And so I think it's a fight we have to have. But I want your feedback. Because I know that in certain, especially in large metropolitan areas, this is a lot easier said than done. It's easy for me to Monday morning quarterback in an area where I have a pretty significant amount of freedom. So I know it's different for the people who live in those big metropolitan areas. So whatever your thoughts, I'd love to hear it, or how you've broached this topic with people that you're, friends with or work with or whatever. So anyway, all right, that's it. If this is the kind of thing you're into, please like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. Follow me on Twitter at My Mundane Mind, on locals at returntoreason.locals.com. I have articles and stuff that I'm going to be posting there more. Yeah. And also on, of course, YouTube. I think I might have mentioned that, but ThinkSpot, I have stuff on Medium as well. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you for watching, and I will check you later. Peace.